Let's open the case file. Today, in this explainer, we're looking at a real tragedy. We're tracking the exact moment Gotham chewed up another bright, optimistic kid and spit out a cynic. This is the Growing Pains dossier. We're charting the hardening of Tim Drake.
Every cop in this city knows Gotham extracts a heavy toll, but you gotta wonder, what does it actually take to break a hero's idealism? Usually, it's not some supervillain's grand theatrical scheme. No, it's the quiet, intimate tragedies, the victims that slip right through the cracks. Tim Drake learned the hard way that not every victim can be saved, and honestly, not every monster can be fixed.
Just look at the official statement here. One word: murder. That's Robin drawing a hard line in the blood-soaked sand. In a world totally defined by the Bat's strict rules, Tim took a situation that the law calls scientifically ambiguous, and he slapped a raw, moral absolute right on it.
Act 1. The innocent victim and the shattering of romantic idealism.
See, before this whole mess, the kid basically saw crime fighting as an adventure. It was a game of cops and robbers fueled by youthful energy. But this girl, Annie, she was his first real protective connection outside the Batcave. He fought tooth and nail for her personhood. To Tim, she was a living, breathing kid with a soul. But to the rest of the world, and yeah, even to Batman, she was just a biological byproduct of Clayface. Just evidence, not a victim.
Now, let's lay out the facts of the crime scene, and it is literal body horror. Annie is forcibly reabsorbed by Clayface. She's literally consumed by her creator. And you want to know the absolute worst part? The boys in blue couldn't do a damn thing about it. The law has this massive blind spot. I mean, you can't exactly charge a guy with murdering his own shape-shifting fragment, right? Annie fell right through the cracks of the justice system, and Tim was absolutely powerless to stop it.
It's a vicious cycle, really. The law's complete inability to punish this specific act plants a very dark seed in Tim. It perfectly mirrors the childhood trauma of his own mentor. Because just like a young Bruce Wayne watching the system fail his parents, Tim realizes that the rules do not always protect the innocent. Welcome to Gotham, kid.
This brings us to Act 2, the ideological divide and the growing moral friction with Batman.
Let's look at the psychological profiles in the aftermath. You know, when the original Robin, Dick Grayson, had his fallout with Batman, it was really about independence. It was a kid wanting out from under a massive shadow. But with Tim, it's completely different. This is about a shattered moral framework. On one side, you have Batman with his clinical detachment. He looks at Clayface and sees a biological anomaly, focusing purely on the technicalities. On the other side, you have Robin, who is emotionally devastated and grieving a murder. It's two completely different realities sharing the exact same patrol route.
And man, it is a harsh lesson. Relying purely on science looks great on a lab report, but it completely alienates the people who are actually bleeding. Batman's logic is meant to keep him grounded, sure, but here, it just feels cold, dehumanizing even. Batman is analyzing mud, while Tim is grieving a girl. That gap in empathy is a massive wedge that won't easily be removed.
And this right here is exactly where Tim's MO shifts. He used to have this rigid moral code, just like the Bat, everything by the book. But individual trauma breeds emotional instability. He stops caring about the rigid letter of Batman's clinical code and starts operating on the spirit of justice. It becomes an emotionally driven, impulsive response focused on the overarching moral right. He frankly doesn't care what the science or the legal dictionaries say anymore. He knows evil when he sees it.
Which leads us into Act 3, the hardened consequence, a much darker, heroic resolve.
If you review the progression in his file, it's night and day. We go from a kid playing a game to a young man enduring absolute loss. Annie's tragic fate fuels this massive shift. He realizes that some monsters simply cannot be redeemed. The quiet, simmering rage in his final report really says it all. From now on, his brand of justice is going to be a hell of a lot more aggressive. The old Tim might have looked for a cure for Clayface. The new one, he just wants to stop the monster, whatever it takes.
Just look at the visual surveillance from that final scene. The camera angles pull way back, leaving Tim looking tiny and completely isolated against this bleak, towering city backdrop. The lighting is just swallowed up by harsh, heavy shadows, and that relentless pouring rain, it perfectly mirrors the internal grief he now has to carry completely alone. He's shouldering the crushing weight of absolute loss.
And that leaves us with a pretty haunting question, one that this city inevitably forces all its protectors to answer at some point. What happens when the most innocent souls are literally consumed by the darkness of their creators? Tim Drake found out, and he paid for it with his idealism. It really makes you think about how individual trauma inevitably alters a person's own definition of justice, doesn't it? Well, case closed for today on this explainer. I'll see you at the next crime scene.